Electric cars, trucks, SUVs, are you listening, man? Let Eastern Motors put you in a car today. Let Eastern Motors finance it all the way.
Eventually, we will reach out to the fine folks at Eastern Motors for a sponsorship deal. We're giving them free publicity at this rate.
Melo's acting there was on par with his defense in those like later Nick years.
The charisma,
just nothing.
Absolute charisma.
Just giving him nothing. I think LeVar worked harder on that than he did when he was on the Giants.
Welcome to the Crosse Commission Saturday Night Power Hour, and we got a lot to power through today. It's always when lacrosse takes the backseat to March Madness that everything goes freaking haywire.
Mm.
And sure enough, things went haywire today. Big Ten opening day has resulted in the wildest
Saturday.
5th and 6th place combo you could imagine.
Because we're selfless.
They were listening to the preview pod, Jake. Michigan and Rutgers are both, lose all the games.
It's a selfless conference. It's a selfless conference. It's like Baby Billy.
I got to catch up on the new season of Gemstones. Obviously, it's been busy the past couple weeks, but once there's some downtime, I got to watch the new episodes of that. Great. But that's not even the best part of that skit. Was the remember that one where he does the infomercial about the elixir, and keep in mind the episode came out like 3 months after the world was back to normal after COVID, and he said right at the end, "It'll fix the COVIDs too."
He's so good, man.
And it's just hit even harder because it was like June of 2021.
He's so freaking good. He's the best.
I heard he killed it on the White Lotus too, and White Lotus isn't really my jam, but I heard he knocked it out of the ballpark.
I think it was Sam Rockwell. Yeah. That meme's been going on Twitter all week. He's the king.
Yeah, and I know you guys go on and on and on about Justified as well.
And he was in the Shield.
I'm seeing some edits with Goggins in the Shield. I was like, oh man, young man.
He was wild. He was wild in the Shield. That's throwback. Yeah, he's tremendous.
Speaking of tremendous, this day of college lacrosse, and a
show
lot of
on TV.
overtime games. We like overtimes. You know what else we like? When you hit that like button.
Yeah.
Good evening, Gil.
Good evening.
What's going on?
But yes, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We come at you every Saturday night. This time you get me backwards. You notice the backwards camera. I'm on my Chromebook watching March Madness while doing this at the same time. I'm multitasking today.
Yeah, I flipped my table around, so now I'm back to the wall.
Yeah, so you get different backgrounds this week.
Much like Michigan and Rutgers today. I'm gonna back to the wall. I'm gonna put on my best performance.
But we got a lot to go to. We'll talk about Big Ten play. Safe was at a good game in Tiger Town as well.
Safe, how many tax cuts chance did you start?
I tried at least 3.
Let's go Tigers. Safe just go, let's go Tigers.
Tax, like defense. I'm like, tax cuts. A couple of the older guys, they were feeling it.
They saw you down there.
Yeah.
I like that message.
Yeah, we should extend them. Yeah, no.
Oh man. But let's start off with the weirdest bogey team for the Maryland Terrapins ever. The Michigan Wolverines have now won 4 straight against Maryland, the team that nobody else can beat, but Michigan can, and they do again today in College Park in triple overtime. 11-10 win for the Victors in victory over the Terps. kind of sticking to the same game plan they've had success against Maryland in terms of playing the wings and on offense to try and solve the defense, and it works to pretty good measure. And then the defense is playing havoc with the Terps offense, and that formula works for a fourth straight upset against Maryland. And so the Terps are undefeated no longer, and Michigan gives themselves some life to start off Big Ten play.
Yeah, Michigan has the scout on Maryland nailed down to a T. They've had it for pretty much 3 years now, and this was the same story. They just overload one side, repeated high-winged alley dodges over and over and over again. They don't even really try to play Maryland behind the goal, attack them from behind the goal, because if you go inside on Maryland, it's at least from behind the net, you're not going to have success. And if you give McNaney shots that he's able to identify and has time to set his feet for, he's going to gobble them up. So tight angle shots down the alley, high to high. They put Ryan Cohen. I mean, he dodged from anywhere and everywhere. Sometimes behind the cage, high wing, would just pull the Maryland pulls from behind the net and put them up top. And then, when they were kind of had their feet flat, he dodged. It was through 3 quarters. I mean, it was the same line of attack we've seen from them. They used Cohen the same way they used Joshua Watt and Mikey Boehm. And Maryland's defense looked befuddled for the first time all season. When they would slide, they'd give up open shots, and there were times where they didn't look like they were sure of whether they should slide or not. And Michigan had just wide open kind of step-in opportunities. It was McNaney's worst game statistically of the season by far. I don't think he necessarily played poorly. There were a couple maybe he would definitely want to have back, but by and large, it was what they did to Maryland's defense. And a very similar story. On the defensive side of the ball, they made Maryland into Dodgers. And they said, who's going to be able to win a matchup and beat us? Maryland was sloppy with the ball, time turnovers. Michigan's ride kind of stepped it up a little bit late, too, in the fourth quarter. Because the fourth quarter, Maryland's defense finally seemed to figure things out. They held Michigan scoreless for 25 minutes. Because you consider the fourth quarter, Michigan was held scoreless. They didn't score in the first or second overtime. So Michigan was going on like a 30-minute scoreless drought. But before this game ended, before they scored the winning goal, because they scored late in that third overtime period. So, yeah, it's a game plan that's worked for them that they've figured out, and they play pretty much routinely every year, at least aside from some of the Big Ten tournament performances. The game where they look most well prepared and most ready to go is against Maryland. They just have this kind of nailed down pat. Maryland, for whatever reason, can't. They finally figured things out defensively in the fourth quarter. Offensively, they were able to tie it. They were down 10-8. They tied it up at 10-10. But from there, in the fourth quarter, Michigan was basically came with the mindset of someone on Maryland's going to have to beat us. We're not going to get beat here through ball move or anything else. We're going to make someone on this Maryland offense beat us. And Maryland had a lot of guys have solid games. Urksa had a lot of assists and get 4 assists. Kelly scored 2 goals. Bryce Ford scored 2 goals in the fourth quarter. So there were guys who had good games for Maryland, but Michigan was like, who's going to be the guy to beat us? And that's probably the one, if you want to identify the one weakness of Maryland up to this point, it's that there's not one guy you kind of look to and say, this is going to be the guy who's going to go make a play and win the game for us. And Michigan kind of keyed in on that and forced them to do that. I think Maryland had plenty of opportunities in the overtime period. The third overtime period, Michigan dominated possession in that one. But by and large, they made Maryland down the street. Someone's had to beat us and they couldn't do it. And so it's another massive upset win for the Wolverines. That gets their season back on track. And right now tied for first in the Big Ten with Rutgers.
I was at the Princeton game, so I couldn't watch this live with you guys, but I did start watching a little bit at the fourth via my phone, and I kind of audibly gasped, because I was by like the Harvard end, but on the floor level, just kind of like that view sometimes, just to change it up. And I turned my phone, I turned to a guy next to me, I was like, oh my God. I was like, Maryland's losing. He's like, what? Maryland's losing? And I was like, yeah, 10-8 Michigan. And it's kind of weird because, like, Maryland held Michigan scoreless the entire fourth quarter.
Yes.
First two overtime periods, and relatively late into third. Like, the defense, like, kind of locked down. And I was like, we're in the chat because by that time, the game had ended at Princeton. I was walking back, and it did feel a little bit like either Michigan just couldn't close the door, or just Maryland just wouldn't just like put the knife in just to, because it kind of felt like Michigan just wasn't doing anything like in the especially the overtime periods. It was just kind of, and I just seemed like Maryland had chances, and even with Michigan like threatening, like Maryland, either have a defensive stand or like a turnover, and then I was like, okay, now Maryland's gonna it's going to be one of those, well, that was a close one, where they, to get out of Dodge with a win, but it just didn't happen. And then, we had Nick Rode and finally just, put this game out of his misery in the third overtime. But yeah, Jake, it's like, this seems like a bit of a thing now, there's now, I think this is now besides Notre Dame, right? Like, this is now the first other team to actually beat Maryland 3 years in a row and 4 games in a row. So, kudos to Wolverines. So, I was definitely like pretty shocked. I thought, I know the line for this one was like +7. So, even the betting gods out there didn't think like Michigan was going to be able to extend their streak. But Connery, they kind of saved their season, I think, in a lot of respects. So. I wish I could watching the Rutgers game when I got back here, just to kind of catch up a little bit. But probably gonna pop this on and watch the first few quarters that I missed, via BTN. But kind of a shocking, but also not shocking, just given if anyone's been paying attention with like how this rivalry's been starting to bubble a little bit between these two, and now Michigan's 4-game win streak against them. So pretty remarkable.
So I guess one thing to talk about now, does this kind of show, we were kind of discussing during Maryland's hot start to the season, does this reflect a little bit, do you think that this is maybe either the advantage the Maryland defense had on opposing offenses starting to wear out a little bit as the season progresses, or is this, Jake, as a Terps fan, kind of, we were discussing about, ceiling versus floor, and are we kind of seeing the Terps kind of touching upon the ceiling a little bit?
We'll have to wait and see. Look, it's Big Ten play. It's going to be, these games are going to take on a certain characteristic, as we've talked about. You saw that in this game. As good as Michigan's offense played through 3 quarters, they still wind up with a significant long scoring drought in there. Maryland's offense didn't have its best game by any means either. Rutgers wins today with 11 goals, I think. Is Maryland's ceiling lower than Cornell? You could argue that. Talent-wise, offensively, they don't have the talent that a Cornell does or Notre Dame does. I don't think that's, they don't have a Chris Kavanaugh, so that's it. Cornell, certainly, they don't have the talent of a Cornell on the offensive side of the ball.
But that being said, I think like Maryland's ceiling is, though, I think, as we learned, is a national title team. So I still think
that's the tricky thing is also, there's just a kind of by nature, the teams that jump out early in the season, I feel like we're seeing more of them and we've seen more of their best lacrosse. So there's the unknown tangible quality. Like, I don't know. It's hard to me to say Cornell's ceiling might be better than Maryland's when I've seen Cornell play defense. in some of the ways that they've played. And I've plenty of questions about them. Notre Dame, even offensively, I have questions about. Certainly look, Notre Dame played Michigan. I mean, they beat the crap out of them. But Michigan was always going to play better in this game than they played against Notre Dame. I don't even think that was a question. It's a conference game. It's an opponent they've had success with. It's an opponent they clearly get up for. Different degree. So I don't know. We'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. Look, I don't think Maryland's a dominant team. I don't think but I don't know that I don't think there's a dominant team out there. So that's the that's kind of feeling of it. Certainly, there's ways to, play them off defensively that are they're going to be easier to play defensively than Cornell is because they don't have CJ Kirst and they don't have. You can make a guy on Maryland beat you, or in a different way to that. Notre Dame similarly, Carolina potentially maybe similarly as well, but on the flip side, does Carolina have the depth of Maryland's offense? I don't know. We're going to have to see if this is was this a matchup that continues to befuddle them, or is this indicative of a larger trend? Certainly, look, the Maryland we saw from the Notre Dame game to the Virginia game, I would even maybe go back to the Princeton game. Maryland from the Princeton game through that Virginia game. I don't think they can play much better than that. I mean, their offense was hitting nearly 40% in offensive efficiency. Defensively, they held Princeton below 10. They held Notre Dame to 10. They held Virginia to 6. They were clearing, prior to these past 2 weeks, they've been clearing the ball. They were clearing the ball at like 93%. They were turning it over 10 times. Like that they put together in that package, in that like kind of frame there, where you're turning it over 10 times a game and you're clearing the ball at 93% and your goalie saving 65%. That, I don't think they can play much better than that. If you ask me, do I think that's good? As Ryan said, I think that's good enough to win the national championship? Yes, I do. I think if you play that way, that's good enough to win the national championship. The last couple weeks, they've started to turn the ball over more offensively. Their clearing has gone down. Now, is this teams figuring it out, or is this they played a brutal schedule so far? They're kind of hitting a mid-season. We kind of talked about some of these teams that have played these difficult schedules up to this point. We saw Princeton last week against Cornell. Certainly feel like they kind of hit a bit of a wall. Is that Maryland is not a team that their margin of error might be smaller, I would say. They kind of need to clear it at that high rate. They need to do all the things we talk about, don't beat themselves, etc. But we saw them do it for an extended period of time. We'll have to see if teams are figuring out how to play them, or maybe are they just hitting a bit of a mid-season kind of roadblock a little bit. I mean, and we've seen there have been Tillman teams that have done this, that have started out hot and then kind of hit a bit of a snag in the road, and then by the end of the year they kind of break through it a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. That's the question we'll have to find out. Are some of the ways that they've fallen off here the last couple of weeks with their clearing, the turnovers. We'll see if that's a long-term kind of trend. I mean, they got Penn State next week. If they beat Penn State, I think, there's not any question. But if they lose, then maybe.
Speaking of teams that have gone through murderous stretches, Princeton Tigers have gotten out of the gauntlet with a 5-2 record, racking up their first Ivy League win of the year with a 13-11 win over Harvard. So the Tigers rack up another big win on to their resume for Harvard. Nice effort at the end there. They were clawing back in the game in the fourth quarter and were making a game of it, but little too late. So Tigers now at 1-1 in the Ivy. Harvard at 1-1 in the Ivy. Safe was our man at the scene. So what was going on there at Shepherd Field today?
Yeah, it was really weird. I was talking to you guys, in DMs, like, and it's odd to say in a quarter that Princeton won 5-1, but it felt like Harvard was like maybe going to set the tone early in the game. They scored first. Again, that was kind of late, 6:44 left in the first quarter, but it felt like throughout the entire first half of the first quarter, like Princeton just couldn't really get out of their way. It felt like it was 3 out of 4 failed clears. Like Harvard seemed to just be imposing their will on it, and then just something happened right after Palumbo's first goal, and Princeton that's when they just kind of took control. They went on a 5-0 goal run to close out the quarter. With Maxey scored a really nice one just before the buzzer. And then from there on, just Princeton, which is able to just keep Harvard at bay. The Crimson were able to put a couple runs in there and even got the game kind of close going into the fourth quarter, where they cut it down to a 2-goal deficit with Finn Jensen scoring just before the buzzer. But even then, it didn't felt like Princeton was ever out of control. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. They weren't. It wasn't an entirely dominating affair because, like I said, it felt at points like Harvard was kind of controlling the pace, was making things uncomfortable for Princeton. But even despite that, I think just how prolific that offense is, Princeton was able to have just so many different people scoring for them that it just was just too much for the Crimson really to do anything. And I don't know. I just tell you, I was kind of worried. I did pick Princeton in this game when we were doing our pick 'em Jake, but I was I felt if it wasn't for Craddock's kind of early stops, Harvard may have taken it to them. It ends up the game with 17 saves, and I definitely feel, especially early on in the periods in the second half, where Harvard was putting pressure on Princeton, putting shots on Kate, but Craddock was able to see it well, or just it just wasn't hitting for the Crimson, despite their offense being so hot. Sam King really kind of had a quiet day for Sam King. You know what I mean? He finished with 1 goal, but just and
off ball too. He really got shut down by Molshine. Molshine did a great job on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of gets lost because their offense has kind of stolen the show. But I like Princeton see that and I'm with you, man. I kind of was shocked. I thought King would have kind of a King day, but really just was kind of held in check by them. 1 goal, 1 assist. It wasn't didn't get what they normally would have had at him, and if they did, maybe just what he normally finishes with 4 or 5 points, 3 goals or so that. That's kind of the difference here. Princeton ended up winning by 2, and I don't want to put it Sam King didn't show up and that's why they lost. But it was something, because you're a big hitter, potential All-American, and Princeton was able to kind of hold him in check. Still, we've been talking about Jake, waiting for the Nate Kabiri game, but 2 goals, 2 assists, definitely kind of helped to put some extra support, around Maxey, who's been consistently offensively productive throughout this year. So, but yeah, just Princeton was just able to get a bunch of people scoring. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Is it 9 players scored at least 1 goal? Just it's just kind of what the thing. We felt talking throughout this year, pretty much anybody on that offensive end, could be a threat to score, and it's kind of showed it today because a couple guys had the first goal of the season in this game. I was listening to announcer while they're in the post goal announcement. So yeah, you kind of just saw it today in full display. Princeton, has the ability to have more than just solely rely on 1 or 2 players. As a bunch of people were able to contribute here, and kind of why they've been so strong this year. I think Shout out to our man Mark, who we'll probably get when we do our bracketology soon. But I think he noted they have more top 5 RPI wins than the entire country combined. So a testament to how strong the season Princeton's been having.
They've beaten 3, 4, 5, and 9 in RPI.
Top 10 teams. Yeah, sorry.
I mean that's so yeah. Well, yeah, they got 3 top. They beat Duke. They beat Carolina. They beat Penn State. They beat Harvard. They beat Rutgers, who's their worst win is Rutgers, who's 21st in RPI and might be in the top 20 of the media poll this week.
Yeah, and I think too,
it's a ridiculous resume. I mean, they have a chance. Sorry to cut you off, Ron.
Yeah, and I think the hardening thing too, if you're a Princeton fan, is last week it looked like they were running out of gas a bit against Cornell, but then they responded today with this performance, and that's a very good sign to see come May that they got their legs back. And I think to get a win against this Harvard team that, top 10 in the media polls, if Harvard would have won this, they would have been looking in real, they would have been quite high in the polls and everything and had their own great resume with the Cuse win too. But I mean, that's a gutsy performance. And as you were saying in the DMs, Jake, it's all facets of the game that Princeton put it together in this one, which is good to see as well.
I tweeted out that what's that that Little Rascal song, Hardball, where it's the beginning where he's like, "Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it."
Yeah,
that's Princeton's offense when they win faceoffs. It's bang 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 bang. It kind of reminds me of some of those Carolina teams back under Bresci, where it's there's just 4 goals in 2 minutes. When they can win faceoffs. And on the other end, they have all the pieces of a good defensive team. I don't know, great. I don't know how deep they are in the rope unit, but they have good. I love Jackson Green. And then they have other guys, Fairbanks. They have good. They have good athletes in the middle of the field. We've seen it all year long. We've seen it in the last couple of years. They have athletes. The question will be kind of depth there, and they don't have English and Stevens, the 2-way guys. They were able to play so many minutes to kind of build off of that. But we saw their polls today were tremendous. Bath, Kistler, Malshon. I mean, that's a heck of a group of long polls, and they held King obviously a 1-goal off ball. They held Teddy Malone pretty quiet as well. So, and with Croddick and Ned as along with that as the security blanket. They have the pieces of a good defense there, and we saw some of that last year. They had some good defensive performances, more so than other teams. Seeing that, but their issues are, I think if their issues are more personnel based at times than scheme, I think they can play good defense. It's a team that when you look at them in full kind of flow, they look like they can play and beat anybody, and we've seen that obviously. I mean, with the schedule they racked up, there is still the offense is still. I don't know. It feels like there's more there. It's kind of how it would, which is a bit of a scary thought, I think you could say, but it does feel you kind of keep waiting for the big Nate Kabiri game. McAsee, I think we know what McAsee is, and we know how he's going to be defended by these teams until Nate Kabiri, someone else steps up. I like what they did, putting the ball in the hands of the midfield more. I continue to think they need to do more of that. With the guys they have in the midfield, Palumbo is a great passer. Tucker Wade, they can invert him. He can dodge up top as well. It does feel like there's more juice out of the offense. They get into kind of lulls a bit offensively for periods. And Harvard, to their credit, this is the third week in a row where they've kind of late in the game been able to lock down defensively and give themselves a bit of a shot at it. They weren't able to make the comeback today, but we saw that against Yale. We saw it against Michigan. I do think there's the making. Cuse agree as well. I did like Harvard's ride early. You mentioned like they gave Princeton some problems, and they had the feeling with Princeton of, man, here you go again. Possessions. Are they giving themselves just too much of possession deficit. So I think there's things for Harvard to take some to heart in this as well. But yeah, Princeton, like, this is a really solid team, and what they could rack up wins wise is pretty nuts, because they still got Dartmouth and Penn, who are in the top 20, and you got Brown, who's hovering around there. That's 3 more of their games left. The only games of theirs that aren't going to really be in the ballpark are Yale, Vermont, and Lehigh. Other than that, like, every game for them is so they have a chance to put together one of the more impressive resumes we've seen in terms of for the NCAA tournament, which, if they want the number 1 seed, they probably will need to get that, to just keep stacking chips to clear that head-to-head with Maryland. But yeah, man, like, they got five. They got 5 wins, and all of them are going to be top 20 wins on Monday. RPI maybe, but like, Rutgers will be in the top 20 of the media poll, so that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, something to like if you're a Tiger fan. Just like if you like this video, hit the like button. And the subscribe button too. Subscribe to us. Speaking of things to like, if you're a Boston University fan, you like playing Army. 10-9 victory over the Black Knights in overtime, as just like Michigan's a boogie team for Maryland, BU is for Army, and puts an end to Army's undefeated start to the season, and a big win for the Terriers. And just like it usually does in the Patriot League, things getting thrown into chaos in the Patriot League, and we're not even into April yet.
The lone unbeaten left in Division I lacrosse, Fear the Deer. The Stags of Fairfield are
the only Stag team that we support.
And they had a scare too. I didn't realize they only beat Drexel by 1 today. Like, that was a close call for them.
That's their last unbeaten team in Division I. Yeah, BU. I don't know what it is. It's every type of game that they seem to give. There's not necessarily a through line in a lot of these up. They just seem to beat Army, like, whatever was required that day. They get it done. Like, they've done it with some offense in the past. Today they did it shutting Army's offense down, which Army certainly, there were some, we kind of mentioned some possible concerns for the Black Knights offense. I thought maybe it'd be their kind of turnovers. But Army only turned over 13 times. But their attack shot, they took a lot of shots over. Fountain, Plunkett, Eicher, 6 goals on 23 shots. Not bad, but overall on the day, Evan Plunkett shot 0 of 12 in this game for Army, which is a pretty ghastly number by a guy who, might be a first Army. Army had 57 shots in this game. And scored 9 goals. They shot 16%. BU wasn't a heck of a lot better, but got it done. They forced Army into a lot of kind of one-on-one play, and I don't know. They make Army do un-Army-like things. It really is different. Again, the Michigan over Maryland, there's a consistent approach they seem to have. Army just seems to not play well against BU. And I think, to Gil's point, the Patriot League, you've got Navy. Navy, which is now I mean, just almost holding on for dear life with this.
They nearly lost to Holy Cross.
Yeah, like they're holding on for dear life with this face-off situation. They were up like 10-3 on BU at one point. They were stomping all over them. And now BU's since come back and picked up some big wins. And this one over Army is significant. Army feels a lot more like a traditional Army team this year, and for all the good and the bad. I think I like their defense when I saw it here. Their short stick defensive midfield, I think, is much improved from where it was last year, where it felt like a real kind of weakness for them at times. But their offense, the pieces are there, but just not sure it's would come together. Some weeks we mentioned the turnovers. This is a potential situation, as well for Army to monitor when you're just kind of thinking about their ceiling. I don't know with Coletti, but it's been a couple of games now that he's been out. Today it wasn't a super problem. Robert Simone and Alec Vaccaro went 14 of 23. But just on the long haul for Army, yeah, like that, their Coletti at the faceoff was it was kind of, just like pillars of the team. In net, Sean Burns been fantastic for him so far this year. You got Pilot on defense. You got Coletti at the faceoff dot. Then you go for Plunkett at the midfield. I get attack 100%. Yes, they against North Carolina next week with Wambach. That could be a problem without Coletti. Just kind of they were Army really strong down the middle, and you pull Coletti out of that, and that could be an issue. I think defensively, I think they're much improved, but offensively, they appear to have taken a step back, and it hurt them today. But BU's definitely got their number. And yeah, the Patriot League is. I think it's only going to get potentially more wild. I think the bottom of the league has really improved this year. You look at teams like Holy Cross, I think is much improved from where they've been. Bucknell's kind of hanging around in there. Lafayette, another solid kind of team. I think there's a lot of good teams in the Patriot League. Colgate is still obviously a funky team to play. I think we're going to get more of this kind of, probably wild card, games in the Patriot League as we go through this year. I think it's definitely possible.
Tremendous job by the Terriers. So yeah, kind of similar with Maryland. This is the 5th game in a row that they've beaten Army, but now the 4th year in a row. I don't think Army had too much of a shot as an at-large. They didn't win the Patriot League, unless it was an undefeated and beat North Carolina next week.
Got to be North Carolina now.
But now it's that's the only way to kind of save your chances for that possibility. But BU kind of quietly having a really solid season. 7-1, now 13th in RPI according to Lacrosse Reference. I mean, they have their own kind of game. I don't know if BU is going to do it, but that Navy loss isn't going to be a bad loss on them. But if they somehow go through the next few weeks with Army on deck, Holy Cross, Army midweek, Holy Cross next week, and then Duke, and then take care of the rest of the Patriot League play. Maybe they muscle their way into the at-large conversation. But even if they don't, again, it's a really solid season. Coley's got really good program up there that we sometimes maybe kind of don't talk as much about, just because of the craziness in the Patriot League. But another trip to the NCAA tournament is not out of the question for the Terriers. And now they kind of are pretty more than confident knowing that if they have to face Army again in the later on down the season in conference tournament play, that they're not going to be intimidated or anything like that. This is a team that, I don't know if you say that they have their number, just given how close these games are, and you just happens to be on the winning side. But it's definitely it gives you a little bit of confidence going in that if we have to face these guys again, that we'll more than be able to hold our own and maybe even just extend this winning streak again. So
Yeah, they got
Really good job with
another opportunity Tuesday night too to add to their resume. They got the Boston Derby against Harvard.
Yeah, so okay, Harvard, Holy Cross, Duke. These next 3
Yeah.
games, not the Holy Cross is maybe that big of a test, but don't want to have a letdown.
They gave maybe a little bit of a hard time today in Worcester. So yeah, I mean, BU can rack up a couple of things here.
The Patriot League, 4 teams have 1 loss, and 7 of 8 teams have a win. I mean, it's
a Patriot League, baby.
Yeah, it's just a kind of classic in the Patriot League. And again, I still like this Navy team if they can get something going with the face-off, figure things out, the face-off dot. Army's playing great defense, so you're going to have to count for them. They 10? I don't think they still don't get up more than 10 all year. So BU's right in there. Yeah, BU's a top 20 team every year, just annually in the top 20. So the consistency of that program is pretty admirable for sure. And yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of, twists and turns going forward.
All right, returning to the Big Ten, Rutgers versus Johns Hopkins.
This kitchen is so hard to clean. If only there was an easier way.
This is my reaction.
This sink is filthy. Hi, I'm Derek Bum. This greasy hob. New kitchen gun. Grubby tiles. Goodbye, God. Rusty tack. All clean again.
Rutgers 11, Johns Hopkins 8. They literally went into our chat room when they lost to Stony Brook, saw our good buddy Adam's comments, and printed it out on a bulletin board. Because Rutgers goes into Homewood and beats Hopkins 11-8. And as Adam said in our DMs, that might have been the worst game in the Milliman era for the Jays.
They went 26 minutes without a goal at one point, which Michigan did that one, but generally not what you want to do. I mean, yeah, the 4th and 5th place teams in the Big Ten are at least figured going in, or 5th and 6th rather, are now 1-0, 2 upsets Saturday in the Big Ten on the road too. It didn't feel like a kind of vintage, or at least the last couple years, year in the conference. But on the flip side, Hopkins is certainly not the team they were the last couple years. Maryland was certainly gettable today from Michigan, and we'll see with Penn State with their injuries. If Penn State has those injuries, going forward, the Big Ten could be like, I have no clue. Trainer got hurt at the end of what game was it? Who did they play before Cornell? Navy? Trainer got hurt at the end of that game and had to leave. Lehman and Draco, I don't know. That's like nuts. I don't know if
Penn State had Yale before Cornell.
Yeah, so Trainer got hurt at the end of the Yale game. And he was limping off the field a little bit. Whatever happened to the others, Lehman and Draco, that's crazy. Like midweek injury practice, I don't know. But basically, the point is, you could see the Big Ten be like 3-2. There could be like a hodgepodge of like 2 or 3-2. Because Rutgers and Michigan, they're going to have home games. Maryland's going to go to Ohio State later on in the year. They do get Penn State and knock them. Penn State, we'll see. If Ohio State wins, you'd have the 4, 5, and 6 teams at least theoretically kind of going in. Maybe Ohio State was ahead of Hopkins at that point. all winning and 1-0. Which is pretty crazy. I mean, at least, again, Penn State, Hopkins, and Maryland have been the top 3 teams in the conference the last couple of years, and they all would have taken losses if Ohio State can pull the upset. So, yeah, I would not be shocked at all if the Big Ten is – I think it's going to look a lot like this all week. The one thing Hopkins, Michigan, and Rutgers have, even if they're down, is – Ryan mentioned this last week. They have – or a couple weeks ago for Rutgers. They have good defenses, and good defenses are going to get you far in the Big Ten. It took 11 goals, and it took 10 goals to win. Or 11 goals each for both these two teams to win. Big Ten games are always lower scoring. It looks just flat out like a lower scoring. It's going to be a lower scoring year. So every Big Ten game is going to be a white knuckler all year long. And again, it wouldn't be shocking me at all if we get some crazy kind of 2-3-way tie at the top come the end of the year.
And we didn't talk about this too much in our preview, Jake, but I always have a bad feeling with Rutgers playing Hopkins just because like they always kind of play. It feels like it's pretty tough. I mean, Hopkins is 6-4 in the last 10 matchups, including this loss. But it always feels like the Jays and Rutgers games are really highly intense. I've seen it at least one here at Rutgers and. Were we at a Rutgers game? No, that was Ohio State game. Jake, I remember.
Yeah, 2 years ago, 2023.
Yeah. So just feels like Jays were a little bit maybe banged up. Clark was saying, I was watching the replay. It does have great hair, but I would love to see that hair underneath the helmet. But just Jays like. It was weird. I was watching it, and I saw the score by the time I got home. So I was just like, I kind of felt like it was one of these. Oh, it's like Hopkins just not in it at all. And then it was like, watch the first quarter. They're up 3-1. I was like, where exactly did we lose control of the situation? Because the final score was like 11-8, and then it was just that 5-goal run from the third into the fourth that really kind of propelled Rutgers from a 1-goal deficit into pretty commanding 4-goal. Lead, Hopkins was able to cut it down to 3 with Charlie Iller's goal, with less than a minute. But just like the entire second half was just kind of the Rutgers show. Hopkins' offense just really didn't come to play. Like it was weird. You noted, Jake, that Jays didn't score for like 26 minutes, but in like Hopkins' highlight, they also noted, hey, by the way, we held Rutgers scoreless for 16 minutes and 10 minutes. It's just this is that. Stretch in the third that would have been better to have scoreless for, but just wasn't meant to be. I was feeling not great about Hopkins. Tournament chance. I said in the pod last week. I was like, put a gun to my head. I would have, or a kitchen gun to my head. I would have been bubble out. Midweek, and I think this just. Kind of makes Hopkins even more behind the 8 ball because, like, next week's at Michigan, then Penn State away, and then Ohio State at home. I'm getting Ohio State Penn State game mixed up, and then Maryland away.
Ohio State they're at home, Penn State they're on the road.
Yeah, it's just so 3 of the next 4 are away. I'm getting the order of Penn State, Ohio State wrong. But 3 of the next 4 are away, and like the one that's at home is the one that I'm kind of probably a little bit the most worried about. The Terps are always a worry, but I think last time Ohio State was at Hopkins, they took it to them 17-8. So I think Big Nick left it to return the favor in front of like all the Jason alums. So yeah, I'm worried about like finishing above 500 in Big Ten play, and we're already 0-1, and like who knows with Penn State, battling their own injuries. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Michigan Hopkins probably favored, but Ohio State, I could see that maybe just like a 1.5 like goal differential, or being favored, and then with Maryland, at Terps, I would think like Hopkins would be the underdog in that. So. Yeah, I mean, maybe Hopkins is the one that's going to be desperate in Big Ten tournament play, and maybe they pull like a Michigan Cinderella. But like, yeah, I'm not feeling that great about the Jays' chances the rest of the way. Not that they can't turn it around, but this was a game that not that I planned it would be a win, but I was like, maybe I wasn't as concerned about Rutgers just given like how they played this year. But,
it looked like the easiest to win if you had to plot the schedule out. I mean, you got to go to Michigan, then Penn State, Ohio State, Maryland certainly were, going to be tough. Not that you couldn't win them. So this looked like the one you wanted to put in the bank. They needed 3, maybe 4 Big Ten wins in some combo regular season conference tournament. This shrinks the margin of error on that. At least if you want them all in the regular season, you got to go 3-1 now, which would be a tough ask. This team they've certainly hit a wall. Talk about, again, teams look like they may be hitting a mid-season wall. This team has certainly hit it, and can they break through? I don't know. The defense continues to be a problem. I think just everything about the way they're defending is a mess. It's Rutgers scored 3 goals against Army. Rutgers has been, how many did they score against Princeton? 5 or 6? And they scored 11 against the Hopkins. And they did have some success in the faceoffs, obviously. But look, they dominated faceoffs against Princeton too. They scored 11 here. Hopkins' strategy, the slide to the adjacent slides into theoretically what are non-danger areas. Well, when you're sliding the way Hopkins is to non-dangerous areas, you're creating dangerous areas elsewhere on the field. And it's a problem. Offensively, if Melendez can come back, I think their offense has a lot of potential with him and Eiler at attack, because you got to put 2 poles down there, and then you're going to put you probably put another one as well in Chevette, and that means you just have 1 pole for Collison, so you get Brooks English and Bauer are going to have shorties, which that would be a real weapon for this Hopkins team if they could get those guys. But if Melendez is out, it's a similar problem they had to before Eiler kind of broke out, where teams are double polling the midfield, and Hopkins really only has 1 true dodging threat at attack. Eiler's basically just filled in for Melendez right now, which he's done a good job of. But when Melendez was out there were already some potential limitations on the offense. Defensively, they've had some. Look, they're really banged up, but be that as it may, this was a team that did a really good job early in the year of, I said, not beating themselves. They were doing a great job on all the little things. They were clearing very well. They were winning a lot of runouts. They were making a lot of really key hidden plays. And right now, this is not a team with a large margin of error overall. Like they're not as talented as they were the last couple of years. They're a young team. So if they're going to win, they're going to have to do a lot of the little things really well. They're not a good ground ball team this year. They don't give Callahan a lot of help on the faceoff at all. When he's winning them, it's usually to himself. Just again, a lot of other ground balls across, they're not winning them. They're going to need to it's going to have to be a super clean game for this Hopkins team. They're going to have to just play across the board efficiently if they're going to be able to win in this league. And right now, that's just not there for this team. They don't have the talent they did the last couple of years to kind of get by when they get stuck in some of these, not gonna, at least right now. I mean, again, Melendez comes back. I think that'll help the offense. Defensively, they look like they got, still some problems. They don't have Chase Ireland like last year. So, look, I think will they be in games throughout this? Yeah, again, everything I just said about the Big Ten, I still think applies. So I think Hopkins is going to be in these games. But it's going to take a team that feels like they need a second wind right now. They're obviously banged up. Their injury list is long, and they look just kind of low on gas. So they're going to need to find a second win from somewhere, maybe a road win over Michigan. They get it will help boost them. But yeah, they look at a team that needs some juice from somewhere.
Let's go to Starbucks, because guess what? Richmond finally gets some coffee. Barely, but Richmond beats Georgetown 13-12 on the road. So they finally get a big non-conference victory. They nearly blow it again, though. They were up 13-8 in the fourth quarter, and Georgetown had a chance to tie it up in the final 30 seconds, and then big defensive stop to seal the deal. But Richmond seals the deal and gets a 13-12 victory over the Hoyas. So that's a nice consolation prize after missing a couple big wins before that. Also, nice feather in the cap for the A-10. For the Big East, the non-con from hell carries on. Though you do have Denver playing Duke in about a half hour from Texas. But, yeah.
For free.
Kind of this,
that game's for free, I hear.
Yeah, for free.
It is. Yeah,
$3. But, yeah, so Richmond finally, by the skin of their teeth, put it together.
Dude, I try really not to. Richmond's 10th in RPI, man. Like Richmond, if Richmond had beaten Duke, they'd be like easily in the top 10 of the medium pool. If they had beaten Cornell and Duke, they'd be in the top 5, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, it's nuts.
It would be Maryland, you know. That else would have been the Terps, you know.
It would be number 1 RPI.
Yeah,
if they won all those games.
Yeah, they wouldn't have in Princeton, but like it's crazy with this. St. Joe's 7-2 as well. They're UMass took a hit today, losing to Brown. That kind of hurts the luster on the A-10. Georgetown, I think we found like a very similar story to Hopkins. I think this is just not a team that can afford any real lapse in it. Everything needs to be super efficient for them. They need to value the ball as much as possible, and they need to maximize possessions. 36% turnover rate. Anderson Moore saves 35%. They got 55% on faceoffs, but again, you kind of lose luster that when you turn it over the degree they do. They're going to keep working on this thing, I'm sure, the Hoyas. Their offense seems to, late in games, kind of figure something out. Fulton Bayman have 4 goals. Kevin Miller, freshman, have 4 goals and 2 assists. So those are some encouraging signs. They shot 32% in this game, which they're shooting kind of in trouble. But it's just not the same Georgetown team talent-wise that it's been the last couple of years. And so if Anderson Moore is going to struggle at 35% and they're going to turn the ball over, they're going to have a really hard time winning these games. For Richmond, I think the fact that they only got 38% as saves out of Zach Vigue, and they didn't win the faceoff, the fact that they're still able to beat Georgetown, I think says a lot about how well-rounded this Richmond team is. And again, I kind of mentioned it, like the ability they have to play at different speeds this year. In the past, it was like Richmond, if Richmond's going to win against one of these teams, they're going to have to do it with their defense. They're going to have to do it kind of holding on to a lead. But we saw them last week, even in defeat, hunt down Duke in that fourth quarter. We see them now put 13 up against a Georgetown team a program that prides itself on defense. This is, I don't know if it's Chamati's best team in terms of its overall talent, but I think this is the best shot they're going to have yet to make a quarterfinal if they get in the tournament. Because they've got the face-off, they got good face-off play, they got a good goalie in Vigue, even if he struggled to, even today, they didn't get great games out of those guys, but Chinoy and Vigue, they have it. And the country has kind of come back to them a little bit, from the rest of those the super teams that kind of come back to them a little bit. And they have NCAA tournament experience in droves. Obviously, they've been there quite often. If they can navigate this A-10 slate, which is obviously it's going to be tough. They have St. Joe's. Once yet again, looks like games between those two is going to the Richmond St. Joe's game at the end of the year is going to be the mid-major game of the year yet again. one of the probably best games of your period. But you still got UMass, even if UMass taking a loss, you still got a good UMass team in there. But if they can navigate this, I think this is the best shot Richmond's going to have to make a run. Because look, I mean, right now where they're at, especially if, regardless of if maybe their at-large goose is kind of cooked a little bit, which he still don't want to. I think it is, but I think just because unfortunately they got Virginia Georgetown the wrong year. But like, look, man, they're going to be. They can keep plugging wins away. They're going to obviously behind the RPI. Richmond has never played a team lower seeded, I believe, than third in the NCAA tournament in the first round. They played Penn, who was seeded 3, but then they've gotten Virginia and they've gotten Duke, who were like two seeds. I think they got Virginia in 20. Virginia was seeded 2 and 23, I think. So I think they got Virginia there where they were 2. They got Duke a couple times as a 2 seed. That's been where they've been stuck, is on that 2 and 3 line. If they're going to be in a position to play a back if they go on the road. I mean, look, keep winning, see what happens. Maybe play yourself into position for a, maybe 8, but they're going to play a team seeded 5 through 8 more than likely. That's kind of that could be their range. And they've played one team has beaten them decisively this year. It was Maryland, who was the number 1 team in the country. Everyone else they play with. Now, obviously, there's a question of can you shut down and win those games, but Richmond going to a 5 or 6 seed, brother, like that. Yeah, I think there's certainly going to be people who are going to feel the Spiders as an upset pick in that game.
That Penn year, 2022, that was also one of their the overtime loss, the first round.
They should beat Penn. They should have beat Penn that year. They lost to Duke in
12 to 11. Yeah, 20.
In 19, they lost to Duke by 1. Then they have another loss to Duke that was pretty close. It was a couple years ago too, I think. Like they have moments, man. They've been there. So they lost to Virginia, I think.
They got some caps.
Man. Like again, I'm with you. Like these teams rock, and the way St. Joe's is, me and Steve talk about something. The way St. Joe's has like rebranded themselves as a defensive team this year with Virch and just causing chaos with the 10-man, and they've got really their goalie play has improved significantly. I mean, that just says a bunch about that team. That program after all the offensive losses, they're just like, okay, let's do it the other way. So yeah, it would rule to get both those teams in the tournament because St. Joe's been doing it quietly, which honestly probably what St. Joe's wants. St. Joe's has had the year where they've become the favorite, and that's how they've had. They got Richmond last year through that. So this become a great budding series rivalry even. And they played great last year. I think the game this year between these two is going to rock. Or is it in Philly this year? No, just the St. Joe's Richmond game.
Oh. St. Joe's Richmond is in Philly last week of the season, 25th.
Yeah, man, this probably will be for because I think whoever wins the A10 gets. Do they do a rotation, or is it whoever gets the?
I think it's the winner of the conference, right? Regular season.
Whoever conference.
I just always remember that St. Joe's, was losing.
Losing at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the game between these teams is gonna rock, and I think the fact that this league, this was again clearly the 4th best. This game proved it. Not even a question. Clearly the 4th best league in lacrosse this year, with Richmond beating Georgetown. Mm-hmm. They were already better than the Big East because the Big East had one good team. But now with Richmond beating Georgetown, it's not even a question. It's the 4th best. It's the 4th best conference by a distance. I mean, I want to say by distance, because you saw the Patriot League kind of
Patriot League beating up on one another.
But it could be. I mean, yeah.
I mean, even though UMass took a lump today, they've had a nice non-con stretch.
Mm-hmm. These two teams,
mm-hmm.
The league looks. The games between those two teams will be great this year.
So they are rotation at least this year. Sweeney Field will host a tournament.
Oh man, that's gonna be a sweet. It's gonna be a hell of a conference tournament.
Look at us timing this to perfection. I'm just gonna stall out for 20 seconds because we literally almost hit an hour on the mark completely perfectly.
Power hour, brother. That's what we
like to do. And then,
what you're here for. Where else would you rather be on a Saturday evening if you want to get, break down all the day's events? There's a game going on. Still got a game.
Dartmouth up 1.
Dartmouth up 1. How about at the end of the first quarter? Dartmouth 4, Penn 3. But yeah, I mean, this is the spot to be.
Yes, and if you like being here at this cool hip spot, hit the like button, subscribe so you can be at this hip cool spot every Saturday night. Share with your buddies, give a thumbs up.
Turn those notifications on.
Mm-hmm. Hit the bell. So Dartmouth's up 4-3 over Penn right now.
Okay. All right. We got to talk about this.
In Highland Park, Texas.
So Gil says Brown, Big Blue, and Big Red won today, so he's on Dartmouth. Cornell. What the was that?
Cornell, we got to have a talk. Why are you wearing black?
We're going to have a conversation, Stones Barkley. Paraphrase.
Like, I know this has been an epidemic in Ivy League basketball where Cornell wears black, Harvard wears black, Dartmouth wears black. You're the Big Red. Wear red. Harvard, you're the crimson. Wear crimson. I haven't seen you wear crimson once this year.
Yeah, it was all great. It was great today.
Dartmouth, you're the big green. Wear green.
What is the?
Let me get the game on right now. Let me see. Is Dartmouth actually wearing green tonight? Let me fire it up on the computer real quick.
I'm going
Dartmouth.
Dartmouth wears Dartmouth is in green. Okay, there we go.
Okay, look, and they're winning. Thank you. You're wearing green.
They're wearing smocks. I know you guys aren't.
The smocks are. That's a rough.
Just 2 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Exactly.
All right.
4-4 now, Dartmouth and Penn. But, dude,
so Hopkins is allowed to wear black, right? Because our official one is going to be blue and black.
Now
it's a school color. That's fine.
So here's what I'll say. So
I prefer you wear the Columbia blue when you play big games like the Syracuse game, but that's acceptable. It's a school color. Cornell's school colors are red and white.
What is it? Or I actually looked it up. It says what did it say on the because I looked this up because I gotta see. I was certain black is not a Cornell school color. I've never seen Cornell wear black.
They've had black as an accent back in the Seabold
era. Carnelian red and white is what it says for Cornell as the official colors. Carnelian red. Look, listen. Hopkins and Princeton, I prefer in orange and Columbia blue. Columbia blue and black, orange and black for Princeton. Look, I love colors. Much like I love lacrosse. Much like I love this video. Subscribe to it. Subscribe to the channel.
Yeah. Like Providence. Providence. Your colors are black and silver, so yeah.
Maryland, black is a school color. Now again, if you ask me if I were to rank Maryland's uniforms, I would go with I like the all red look over the black. But black's not bad, and it's a school color.
It's a school color, but I'd still rather have it been red.
Yeah. Who else has black? As like I'm thinking of the same. Like Carolina used to wear black for a while.
Yeah, Carolina, no, get out of here.
What are you doing,
dude?
Oh God.
I know that's technically a school color, but no, wear blue. Loyola, wear green. UMBC,
Loyola
that's
won the
I know
Loyola
that's
won the
also
national
still calling for
championship.
Loyola, but wear green.
Loyola won the national championship in gray.
UMBC, fine.
It's just
School
yeah.
color.
I don't Cornell.
Army,
Cornell,
yeah,
I saw that.
Army, black, fine. But yeah, Cornell, get the hell out of here. Wear red. Cornell wins 19-14 over Yale. By the way,
CJ Chris had how many goals did CJ Chris? He had 7 goals at one point in
like
the
7
first
goals
half,
in the first half, I think.
which is nuts.
9 goals, 1 assist on the day.
Oh my god!
10-point day for Kurtz.
That dude's a freaking animal, man. 8 goals on 9 shots this goal. What is that, dude? What the hell is that? All right.
Yeah, let me go through the scoreboard. Binghamton 9, NJIT in the America East. We did mention UMass. Brown with an 8-7 victory over UMass. Brown putting together some pretty nice wins in their non-con slate this year. They get another good victory there in Amherst today, 8-7 over the Minutemen. Vermont 16-12 over Bryant in the America East. In the Patriot League, Bucknell 11-10 over Lehigh. That's another team kind of quiet, under the radar.
Bottom of the Patriot League is improved this year. Holy Cross, Bucknell.
Yeah, that's back-to-back wins now. They beat Colgate, they beat Lehigh, so 2 wins in Patriot League play for the Bison. So nice to see that out of them. Canisius 10-9 victory over Quinnipiac. Lemoyne, first outdoor home game of the year with an 11-6 victory over Cleveland State. In the Dome, Central New York Derby, Syracuse 16, Colgate 12. You'll never believe this, but the refs called a lot of penalties in this game. But Syracuse holds off a bit of a fourth quarter charge from Colgate, come away with the victory there. So the Orange win that one. Delaware beats Hampton 18-3 in the CAA. As we mentioned earlier, Fairfield remains the last unbeaten, but they do survive a scare against Drexel, 12-11 victory for the Stags. St. John's lacrosse had a better day than St. John's men's basketball. Sorry, Rick Pitino, 13-11 victory over Hobart. Hofstra in their Grimace era. Grimace showed up, and that worked for the Mets. And so far, it's working for Hofstra because they beat Monmouth 15-9. So Hofstra begins CAA play 2-0. That might be the turnaround that program needed, was Grimace showing up. Patriot League, as we mentioned, Navy and Worcester survive. They were down 8-7 with 2 minutes left, forced overtime and get the victory in overtime 9-8. So as, again, Jake, you were saying, bottom of the Patriot League improving. Marist 13-12 over Mount St. Mary's in MAAC play. St. Joe's 16-8 victory over Providence. So Hawks, as we said, 8-10 looking very good. Robert Morris 15-8 victory over Wagner. Towson with a comeback victory in overtime beat Stony Brook 13-12.
Yeah.
Virginia 14-9 victory over Utah. Yeah, Jake, you wanted to add on something?
You'll mention. This Towson season is. I don't know, man. Like for a while there, the offense was the issue. I mean, they have Villa Gomez was hurt, and suspensions, injuries. They definitely injuries. It's like I don't know if suspensions. That'd be not great, pal. But yeah, I think we were all high on them. They were like the highest ranked mid major in our preseason poll. I think in the media poll too as well. The offense looked like was the issue early on. Just couldn't without Villa Gomez, who I believe is hurt. Look, probably maybe a season deal at this point. It was so easy for teams to key on Weishar. They finally moved Weishar down to attack because it was like when Weishar wasn't on the field, they just couldn't get anything going playing midfield. So now they put him on attack. He's out there every time. The offense seems to have improved, but they've played just crazy games last 2 weeks. CAA Thunderdome might be back, man. I mean, offense. I mean, Towson the last 2 weeks. You got Fairfield in there. It could be a crazy year in the CAA. Is Fairfield going to be favored in like every game the rest of the way? Where do they play Towson Delaware?
Let me see. So they play. Let me get their schedule up now. They are at Stony Brook, home against Hofstra, at Delaware, at Towson. So they do have to go to Newark and Towson.
They will. I feel like they're not going to be favored in at least one of those two games, maybe both. I'm going to put my odds on the Fair. I do not think we're on undefeated watch with Fairfield. If they get to that Towson and Delaware stretch undefeated, then we have the conversation, maybe. Oh man, hell of a goal. Dartmouth up 5-4. All right, here's a fun. Ryan, are you done with going around the scoreboard?
Not yet. So VMI now up to 7-2. They beat Mercyhurst 18-12. Marquette 9-8 victory over Air Force. 0-8 Loyola. Lafayette with an 11-10 victory over the Greyhounds.
Speaking
I think
of
that
Loyola,
that might be the last game Loyola was favored in Patriot League play.
Yeah, they Holy Cross and Bucknell do not look like auto dubs the way you would kind of put it the last couple years. I'm not saying I think Loyola is going to lose those games, but yes, Loyola might be at a point where it's an underdog the rest of the way at 0-8, which we are at a point. We don't need to do the Loyola deal again, but we're at a point where the more losses that come in, it just feels like the more you have to maybe really consider the serious conversation here. If they can't like turn this thing around if they can salvage it to the Patriot League tournament, then maybe. But if Loyola misses the Patriot League tournament, then which is on the table, it might be worth having. There's just, it feels like a threshold of how bad a season can be. Mm-hmm. And I think 2 wins or fewer is that level.
It's getting dangerously close.
I'm starting to get Petro vibes. I think it's like, if it wasn't as bad as that last season was, maybe the separation doesn't happen. But it seems something weird with Loyola, like 4-8, one of those like bad seasons, like they come. He's all won a championship for us, find another Final Four, too many. But if it's a complete like over, like that's just that may get that may cross that threshold where people start having conversations that they may not have had before, or like people who may have wanted those to make a move now feel more emboldened if it's like a complete like.
Like I don't. That was it's one where you're like, I don't know what the best. There were 2 jobs with a couple jobs, big jobs you thought might have maybe opened. I don't think there's a big job out there that's going to open, but it was at like maybe someone offers like a lifeline out of town, just like fresh. Everybody can just kind of like do the kind of comparison a little bit like Calipari at Kentucky with Brian mentioned the same job, like just hey, like let's just like this is just it, but maybe let everyone kind of. But yeah, I don't know if there's a job out there that Toomey would look at. It's again, if they can turn this thing around, Patriot League get in the Patriot League tournament, then I think you'd be like, there's still things you need to obviously fix, many things. There's got to be staff changes there either way at the end of this year. But if it gets to miss the Patriot League tournament, it could be bad.
So what else are we gonna? America East play UMBC with an overtime victory, 13-12 over Albany. LIU 14-9 victory over Detroit Mercy. Siena beats Iona 18-12. Sacred Heart 13-8 victory over Merrimack. Last night we had UNC beat High Point 14-12 on the road. Dartmouth Penn going on right now, 5-4 Dartmouth at last check. Yeah. Denver Duke still a score?
Yeah, Dartmouth 5, Penn 4, 5:28 second quarter.
Okay. And Denver Duke about to face off in about 10 minutes in Highland Park, Texas. The rich school that had all the Masters winners and Super Bowl winning quarterbacks and all that. So they're playing that one. for $3 to stream. After what was it, $20 to watch Virginia and Towson.
Penn just tied it up at 5. All right, I got a trivia question.
Yeah, and one other thing, tomorrow night, Sunday night BTN returns with Penn State, Ohio State tomorrow.
All right, I got a trivia question
Okay, so
for anybody in the chat. Anybody in the chat is free to answer this. And Ryan and Safe, you guys are obviously free to answer as well. All right, Dartmouth is tied 4-4 with Penn right now. The Big Green are in the top 20. They were in the top 20 this week for the first time since, what was it, 2000
Was it 04?
They tweeted out on their Twitter. First time since 2007, Dartmouth is nationally ranked this week. All right, let's do 2. I got a couple. It's kind of like multi-pack. So it deals with Dartmouth, who is tied with Penn 5-5 right now. When was the last time Dartmouth had a winning record in Ivy League play? Just flat out a winning record at any point. Anyone in the chat's free to chime in if you'd like. You guys, when's the last time Dartmouth had a winning record in Ivy League play? Just, I mean, like, not. I don't mean like winning season. I mean like any
winning in the Ivy League.
In the Ivy League, at any point of the year, Dartmouth had a winning.
Any point of the year or finished?
Any point of the year. We'll do both. We'll start with any point of the year.
Any point of the year, give me 06.
Jim Greenfield says 03. All right, Ryan, you say 06?
2012. Yeah. No.
2012. Ooh, all right. In 2015, Dartmouth won their Ivy League opener over Harvard.
Okay.
Jim Greenfield says, yeah. 03 is yes. 03 is the last, great. That was Rick. Listen, I know it ended bad for Ricky Soul at Navy. Dude, Ricky Soul had motion there for a while.
Oh yeah, he made Stony Brook into a thing there.
Taking Stony Brook to a quarterfinal and Dartmouth to the NCAA tournament.
He pushed Virginia to the limit in that quarterfinal.
Yes. Also, and to be fair, even at Navy, he got Navy within what? Against Brown, at Brown, within like a goal of the Final Four. So, man, Rick Soul is a hell of a head coach at a point in time. All right, so 2015, they won their Ivy League opener against Harvard. They would not win another Ivy League game until 2023. And that was the year they fired Callahan. After that, they fired Callahan to bring Kerwin in. Callahan pushed the boulder up the, I still think Callahan, it was bad. The record was ugly. I mean, he took over a bad situation, and he grinded it out. All right. Last time they had a winning record in Ivy League play. Yes, that game was Ryan mentioned. That Stony Brook Virginia game was a classic. Watch the highlights there. A couple.
Oh yeah, I was there. That was some atmosphere. You had the whole Stony Brook student section and the whole end zone. Oh my God, that game was nuts.
Another legend, Kevin Crowley. I watched some of his. That dude was just a monster. All right, last time Dartmouth had a winning record in Ivy League play at the end of the year.
2004.
Ooh, man, Ryan, you nearly nailed it. 05.
Ooh, 1-0.
Bill Wilson was the head coach, and they were 4-2. That was the last time they had a winning record in Ivy League play at the end of the season.
Yeah, they won a share of the Ivy League one of those early 2000s.
03. That was David mentioned that 03. That was the year. They won 5-1. They won a share of the Ivy title, and they played Syracuse and they played Syracuse close that year in 03. 13-11, first round loss. They went up to the Dome. That was yes, that is still Dartmouth's only NCAA tournament appearance ever. So yes, Dartmouth, if they could win tonight, it would be their first lead, the first time they have a winning record in Ivy League play since 2015, like at least at one point in the season. Because 2023 they beat Harvard, but that was later in the year. and that would be pretty substantial, obviously, for them. They'd be, stay in the top 20. And if they could beat Penn, they would have, Brown later on in the year. I think this is a big game for Dartmouth to get over that hump, get a win, and then maybe see what you can do. If you start 0-1, it feels like you lose. Penn's going to be a team you're in the conversation with for that last spot in the Ivy League tournament. Because I think Harvard will get the 3. They already are, got the win over Yale. So I think this is a big one for Dartmouth tonight. Penn, of course, look, Penn too. Penn loses this game, 500 becomes a serious conversation with the rest of their schedule. So, yeah, big kind of stakes in this one tonight for kind of Ivy League pecking order.
All righty. So
Penn just took the lead. Penn just took the lead 6-5. Big nice shot down the alley.
All right, so that'll just about wrap things up before Denver Duke faces off for $3.
All the people who complain, all the people who like tweet about college lacrosse every year, but still complain about like games being behind a paywall. You better be watching this one.
That's why you do it, Billy.
Indeed, Gil. Go Terps.
Yeah.
Against Grand Canyon.
They beat Grand Canyon.
Yeah, not Grand Canyon. Sorry. Yeah, we beat Grand Canyon. Who are we playing? Colorado State.
Colorado State.
Yes. Look, if the game goes the same. If the game goes the same way, I mean,
So yeah, if you like the fact that there's more college lacrosse to watch after we're done here, why don't you hit on your way out? Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed watching this on replay, leave a comment. And turn on your notifications because we have podcasts midweek. We got
what should they comment? Yeah, what should they comment?
Yeah, what's a good comment prompt?
Who's your number one?
Oh,
good one. Yeah, because who knows? Yeah, that is going to be a weird poll to figure out because
I like that.
Everyone's beating up on each other at the top.
There you go. All right, leave a comment in the chat. Who is if you had the poll, who would you rank number 1 in the country? Maybe you want to wait till Penn State plays Ohio State tomorrow night, but you're watching this, leave that in the comments after this finishes up. Who would you rank number 1? I don't know.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't. I genuinely do not know.
Yeah, and if you're looking for the graphic, probably going to have to wait till Monday evening because I'm going to be going to bed as soon as the game ends tomorrow. So if you're looking for a top 20 graphic, it might be a little bit later on Monday. So sorry in advance. All right, but I think that's just about to wrap up. So for everyone out there, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you again next Saturday. And as always, stay hydrated.
Thank you, Mr. President. Enjoy this outro.
Ford, Honda, Chevy, Beamers, and minivans, over 600 cars, trucks, SUVs.